So, it is May. I wish it was June. It is May now, apparently. I'm actually filming this in the middle of April, and then I'll film the last clip at the end of April, which will probably be at the start of May, so, just to make it quicker for me to film it. So, let's take a look at what I've watched so far in April, the fourth month of the year. And I don't know the latter name, so I figured I'll just put a number. So, we started April with the obvious April Fool's Day. I watched the new Shout Factory release. I say new, it's been out for a couple of years now. I just hadn't gotten a Blu-ray. I used to have the DVD. I have the DVD, so it's actually still up there. So, yeah. No, it was really fun. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was a rewatch. I watched with my brother, actually, because he just got home from work, and he's like, what are you going to watch? He literally was like, what are you watching? And I'm like, April Fool's Day. And he's like, alright, put it on. I might have actually watched it with him last time. We don't remember. It was like 2017, I think, when I watched it for the first time. So, maybe 2018. So, it's been a fair few years. But really fun. I wouldn't deem it a slasher film. It's more of a mystery thriller over a slasher. It's deemed as a slasher film, but nobody dies on screen. So, not really. A lot of deaths are shown, but no one's stabbed or anything, so it's not really a slasher. But very fun, so I gave that 3.5 stars. On the same note, I watched Fanorama, which was a YouTube, it's a 30-minute short film that's on YouTube. I gave it 2.5 stars. It's one of those, a live-action remake or adaptation of Futurama, and it's interesting. Got some interesting production design, but all the jokes are recycled from the show, which I guess is fine. If you want new content, you're not going to get any, to the point that they didn't have the budget to complete the narrative, so they just kind of have Zap come in and be like, hey, so we didn't have the budget to finish the narrative, so thanks for watching. And then it cuts the credits, and you get a 10-minute Everyone Loves Hypnotoad, except it's just Hypnotoad there for 10 minutes. It's really boring, that part, because I'm like, well, they actually did a 30-minute, Everybody Loves Hypnotoad episode for the show, which actually has a laugh track, and it has ads, and it has different camera angles. It's a lot better. It really achieved its design. I think Lachlan on my channel had reviewed it a few years back, so Lachlan Reviews Everybody Loves Hypnotoad. Check it out. But yeah, this one was fine. I gave it 2.5 stars. I liked it for some of the costuming designs and character designs. It's also really weird and kind of makes the original show look a bit more abusive than it actually was, because, it's a cartoon. But when it's in live action, it's like, oh, there are some elements here that really don't translate. Then on the same night, I watched the 2020 The Grudge film, or The Grudge: The Untold Chapter, which helped to conclude my Due on The Grudge review. So check that out if you haven't. It's an hour long, and I break down every single of these movies, and they are okay, but mostly suck. So there you go. I gave it 1.5 stars. It wasn't very good. On the 2nd, I watched Toys R Me with Lance Reddick. It just popped up on my YouTube. It's not actually a film. It's like a short film, 5 minutes. Somehow I gave it 3 stars, which I find interesting. I'm not really huge on Funny or Die sketches. They feel very of their period, but this was quite a few weeks after Lance had passed away, and a lot of people had rewatched that, and it just popped up in my feed, and I'm like, I'll check it out. I've heard it was funny, and it's interesting. He's a good actor. It really sucks that he's passed. On the 4th, I watched, which I didn't include in my Due on the Grudge review, Sadako vs. Kayako. I gave it 2.5 stars. I didn't enjoy much of it. It was basically The Ring story, but what is it? Kayako just kind of pops up. They kind of just put in these little inserts that are the Grudge, and then they fight in the end. But they more or less combine into one more horrifying entity. So yeah, I watched it on YouTube. It didn't have the best subtitles. It was as if someone had written down the script, put it on the Google Translate, and then put it through that, because there's a lot of pronouns that are incorrectly asserted and all this kind of stuff. Like, and I mean that to the point that, like, you're watching and you're like, wait, who's this guy that they're talking about? And they actually just mean it's a girl, and because they're, yeah, you know, see, pronouns matter. Then on the 5th, I watched Christopher Robin, because I had seen a clip on TikTok, I think, of all places. So I watched it on Disney Plus, and it was beautiful. It was such a good movie. One of those great live-action adaptations that nobody talks about from Disney, which is good, because we shouldn't talk about the good ones, because all the bad ones are awful, and we shouldn't talk about the good ones. The good ones only being Cinderella and this, because Cinderella was like, hey, what if we take the original source material and actually characterize the characters? What about that? How about, well, let's do that. It's the only Disney adaptation I would recommend outside of this, but this one's more of a sequel. So I watched what it was a sequel to on the same night, which was The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh from 1977. For me, that was a childhood classic. I had like the VHS and or DVD, I do not remember, it was one of the two. But watching it on Disney Plus, I'm like, this is like insane how much, like, there's a lot of it I remember, because it's just the book, original book, just adapted into a movie. And it's fair, like, they just take a few of the highlightable chapters, which you can see a lot of that put into the sequel, the Christopher Robin, and it's just really nice. It was really, really fun to watch. It's really nicely animated, the way they kind of break the fourth wall as well, like how it's actually a book. It's such a beautiful film. I gave them both 4 stars. I absolutely adore them. But yeah, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, that was some real nostalgia for me. So yeah, it's just, I haven't watched that in like maybe 20 years. It's maybe 18 or 20 years. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, it's cool. On the 7th, I've been watching a lot of TV of recent, so I haven't been watching as many movies. I'm like 50 hours now into Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic, because I just adore it. I play it maybe once a week just so I don't overdo it. Mostly because it started hurting my back and I had to like stop playing it because of the way I was sitting. So that was great. But I've also been watching Succession and Yellow Jackets and Barry, and I'm still trying to finish the Orville, the 3rd season. My gripe with it is that the 3rd season, each episode's range between 45 to an hour and 10, and it's just getting ridiculous. Like, I really like the show, but my god, it's just, these episodes are so long. When you're accustomed to watching 45-minute episodes of each for 2 whole seasons, and I am binging to some degree, not like several episodes a night, but like I could do 2 episodes a night. Now it's like I can do 1 episode and that's it, and it fucking annoys me. Yeah, so I've been putting that off a bit. I've been watching it back here and there, but there's only 10 episodes and I can hardly get through them. Well, I'm enjoying watching them. It's just hard to convince myself to be like, watch an episode, but then it's like, oh, but it's like 10 o'clock, it won't finish till like 11:30, and then I won't be able to go to bed on time because I got work tomorrow. It's just annoying. But it's not bad. Succession, great. Barry, fantastic. Succession, great. Barry, fantastic. They're both fantastic. I just adore the comedy of Barry. The drama of Succession I really like as well. But its comedy is also banger. And Yellow Jackets. Beautiful show. So on the 7th, I watched Grosse Pointe Blank. Technically, I had watched Pitch Black because we had it on binge and we're watching on binge. This was a Friday night group watch. But while it was on my laptop, I was playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. So, my mate guy messaged me after. He's like, why didn't you log that you watched Pitch Black? Like, because it was me, him, and Bill had watched it. And I was like, no, I didn't really watch it. I watched like 5 minutes of it because I was like so focused on the game. But then I finished the game I was playing, so I watched Grosse Pointe Blank with them, and I gave it 3.5. I hadn't stars. I hadn't seen it before. It was very fun. Then, of course, Second Sight, Delivering Martin. I watched the 4K UHD. It looked incredible. I gave it 4 stars. I absolutely adored it. It was really interesting. Really messed up, but really nicely done. And then I read Alexandra Helen Nicholas's essay that she'd written, a part of the set, and that was a really good essay. But I also watched their documentary, Taste the Blood of Martin, which was like, it was over an hour, so I figured I'd add it to the, I could log it. It was there on Letterboxd. It's one of those no posters, not too many details, but it was over an hour, so I'm like, I'll count it. It's a feature to some degree, so yeah, it was very informative. It was basically like cutting between these interviews of the people who made it, and then cutting to like on set, them just kind of walking around with like two camcorders and like with like the three main leads or whatever. So, or like the lead guy and the two like producers or whatever. So just kind of walking around and be like, yeah, this is where we did this scene, and they like their memory of it was really sharp, which was cool. So yeah, that was really just nicely effective. But I think there was also a 5 to 10 minute vintage doco that Romero was a part of. So I watched that as well. Obviously, you can't log it, but yeah, that was really nice as well for what it was. They were both had different styles of information, which was really good. So yeah, no, I'd recommend it. It's a good 4K set, good 4K even just individually. Then on Easter Sunday, I watched Mars Attacks. I have the Blu-ray. 3 of my friends had watched it that past week, and another of our friends watched it the next day, and I was just not really into it. I gave it 2.5 stars. I enjoyed elements of it. I liked the aliens. I liked the crazy designs, like, the whole Sarah Jessica Parker being decapitated and replaced with a dog body, and shit like that was, like, amusing. I don't think I have much... I really like Grandma Norris. She was really good. My favorite character for sure. I don't even mind like the dated effects. I just feel like it being a Tim Burton feature didn't really work for me. I'm like, this feels like it should have been like. It feels like Tim Burton liked this kind of style of 50s sci-fi movie, but his style of making it I don't like. I feel like it would have been better as a Joe Dante feature, which ironically he had done Matinee, which isn't an alien invasion film, but is an atomic bomb film, kind of, that he did, like, the year after or whatever, and I'm like, I much prefer Matinee. So, yeah, I didn't even give Mars Attacks a like. I enjoyed elements of it. I might rewatch it and be like, yeah, I like it more on rewatch. I don't know. Then Guy and I watched The Pope's Exorcist. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. One of those classic, not a great film, but like, and not a good horror at all. Like, even to my friends Phil and Katie, I was like, yeah, no, it is not a good horror film. Like, if you've seen an Exorcist film, you've seen this film before. But you haven't seen it with Russell Crowe pretending to be Italian and driving a moped. It is gold. It is such a funny movie. Like, I didn't watch any trailers. Like, I saw a part of a trailer that was on when I watched Scream, and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to look because, I don't want to spoil it just in case. I saw some of the cheesy looking effects, so I'm like, this doesn't really sell me. And Guy was like, dude, we got to watch this. This looks hilarious. I'm like, alright, fine, we'll watch it. And it was hilarious. Him and I were laughing our fucking heads off in the cinema. I don't know if anyone actually enjoyed it because we were laughing so much. I don't know. I don't want to be that kind of a person, but it's like, I mean, no one complained. No one said, hey, can you guys shut the fuck up? We're trying to watch a scary movie. It's like, no, this ain't scary. I think they were like, this is boring. And we were like, this is hilarious. So, yeah, it was fun. Then I watched The Descent because Noah was like, what the fuck, you haven't watched The Descent? He'd watched it on TV a few years back. I'd bought the Blu-ray, never watched it. And I knew the twist that comes in halfway throughout the film, but I still really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was quite effective. I don't get that much claustrophobia from caves. I do get claustrophobic from mostly real wild experiences, but like the scene in Nope, the abduction scene. Even recently I went to a convention and the opening, you had to go in this big hall at the start, like that's the entry place, and it was just immediately overwhelming. And I'm just like, this is like a sensory overload. There are too many people. It's just stuffy. This is like putting you in an oven before you go out and do whatever else you want as little cupcakes or whatever the fuck. It was terrifying. But this film didn't really do that to me. I did like the second half quite a lot. If you've seen it, you know what happens in the second half. I won't spoil it. But yeah, it was interesting. I liked the film work. The cinematography was really nice. The ending was amazing. My brother was like, we gotta watch the second one. And I'm like, I'll tell you what the description of the second one is. That'll convince you not to watch it. And then I did, and he's like, yeah, let's not watch the second one. So, do yourself a favour, don't watch the second one. We didn't, thank God, but Then on the 13th, I watched the Super Mario Bros. With a full stop, the Super Mario Brothers movie. I gave it 2.5 stars and a like. I thought it was alright. I liked the animation. I liked the nostalgia I got was from the music cues, not from any of the characters. Did not give a shit. I did not like most of the voice work. I liked Bowser. Everyone liked Bowser. I liked the witch dude, the little wizard, whatever the fuck Bowser's little Goomba magical dude is. His voice acting was superb. That was like the best voice acting in the whole goddamn movie. Anya Taylor-Joy was fine. She didn't even need to act. She just spoke lines. I did not like Charlie Day as Luigi. I didn't have much of a criticism against Chris Pratt, but I'm also like, if they had Charles Martinet playing two different characters, he could have played Mario. The fact that they didn't was so bullshit. But even my mates were like, well, what do you mean? Like, he hardly voices the character in the game. And I'm like, did they not play, like, Super Mario 64? he says a lot of shit in that game. He's got dialogue. So does Peach. I even said Peach has dialogue in that game. You know, she reads out a letter. But, yeah, I thought it was fine. You know, I didn't care that much for it, but I thought it was alright. And I also got to see it for free because Lachlan got tickets for us. It was wonderful. I love going to see movies with him. I joke because it was me, Lachlan, and Michael. These are like my two primary school friends. I catch up with Lachlan every couple of months. We saw Scream, we saw Terrifier 2. You know, he's been on this channel before. Michael has as well. And yeah, it's just we hardly see Michael, so we're like, we gotta hang out and watch this film. So we did, and my experience there was just, I just wanted to hang out with my friends. I hadn't seen Michael in like a year and a half since like Spider-Man No Way Home, so I'm like, this will be a good excuse. He can come down, we can hang out. And it was good, it was fun. So that was what was worth it for me, not literally any part of the fucking movie. Yeah, actually, I did like the kamikaze part, the fact that the blue shells are actually kamikaze turtles. Weird canon, but okay. Then I watched Taylor Tomlinson, Look at You, a comedy special on Netflix. I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't know how to rate comedy specials. Honestly, I really don't. I feel like if I watched like a Bo Burnham, I'd be like, yeah, that's a comedy special. But it's like, I don't watch many comedy specials. I do like them. I don't like a lot of the comedians that they have on Netflix. There's a lot of British ones I like, but yeah, I mean, look, I tried watching like a Jimmy Carr one like 2 days later, and it's just like, it's just him with his awful laugh trying to roast people in the audience for not liking COVID vaccinations. I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. Like, I don't mind him in stuff where it's like, there are other people, you know, like 9 out of 10 Cats, because it's like, he's the host. He doesn't have to talk. He can just say some lines, and that's about it, and it's great. It's wonderful. I love it. You can shut the fuck up. I don't really care much for his comedy style, so, but I did like Taylor Tomlinson. This one was really, really fun. I'd seen a lot of the clips on, like, YouTube Shorts and whatever, so I was like, oh, I'll watch it. I felt like it, and I was like, I'd work the next day, but I didn't care. It was like, I watched it between 12 to 1. Fuck it. As in 12 a.m. to 1 a.m. So that's why it was on the 15th. So yeah, I gave it 3.5. So that was actually, that was Look at You. I don't know if I said that, but yeah. Later that day, I go home from work. No one was home. I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get fucking high. So I did some of the wacky tobacco, and I watched Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, because I started trying to watch the second Taylor Tomlinson special, Quarter Life Crisis, and I lost the plot within the first 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, I need to put on something fast-paced, because every other movie I've watched while high has not really worked except for like Annihilation, but that was slow and moody, and that worked quite well. Scott Pilgrim was a blast. Like, watching that high was insane of an experience. Just like all the lines I knew were about to come up and just saying them out loud before the characters did. I would probably be obnoxious as shit to watch that movie while high. So, yeah, and I ate a lot of shit. I had like a can of Pringles, a whole Easter Bunny. I had pizza, and then I still had dinner afterwards. It was ridiculous. I get really hungry when I'm high. But like the kind of like, I feel like I'm going to die if I don't eat. So it's it's kind of crazy. But it's fun. And so when I'd cooled off enough but was still had a bit of a tinge, I watched ScoobyDoo 2002. I gave these both 5 stars because I love them. 2 of my favourite films. I'm looking at the picture of the signed Neil Fanning picture from Scooby-Doo, and I'm like, I love it. I love that film. Even while slightly high, it was like, fucking loved it. So, yeah. Then I watched on the Sunday, Taylor Tomlinson Quarter Life Crisis, which I still gave 3.5 stars. I feel like it's a bit lesser of a special. I don't know. I didn't find it as funny as the previous one. There was just an element to how she approached it that I think was better done in the second one, which makes sense. If you watch them first one then second one, then yeah, it grows with you and you like it more. But because I watched the second one first and then the first one, like as in like in terms of release, I was like, yeah, I probably should have done it the other way around, because the second one I liked a lot more because she has a better familiarity with performing like this and the set looks better and all that kind of stuff. So still, the jokes are really good, and she has a lot of dead mum jokes in the second one, which I'm like, knowing the stuff from the second one and watching the first one, I'm like, I feel like she's just lying to her audience. So yeah, it's fun. And then in fucking Twitter got me to watch Superman the movie, because the bastards were like, hey, you know how that whole opening with it's a boy talking about the comic and it's like the Daily Planet and then it opens up with the credits? I don't remember that ever happening in the movie, and I've had the DVD all my life. It probably did happen. I don't think it happened in the Australian release. Either way, we have the theatrical version on 4K, and this isn't because they've got all the films on 4K coming out. I already had the 4K. So I hadn't watched it on 4K, I hadn't watched it in years, so I put it on, 4.5 stars, loved it. Like, it's a very bizarre movie to watch. You realistically do not need the first 45 minutes of it, but knowing the context, knowing how there's like all this world building set up and how some of this will play into the sequel, I'm like, I don't care, I'm enjoying this. This thing slaps. It's so beautifully shot, the production design is outstanding. It's such a good looking movie. Sure, there was some dodgy blue screen stuff. It happens. Okay, it's the 70s. It's fine. But yeah, it was just beautiful. It was mostly because the plot kind of dwindles a bit, and again, some dodgy effects that I couldn't give it the perfect 5 stars, but 4.5 I was happy with. And of course, I had to sequel it the next day with the Richard Donner cut of the second one, because I don't have the second one on Blu-ray. They're releasing 4Ks of both cuts separately, which is interesting, unless you get the Steelbook set, which has cover on both sides, has different covers. One's the Richard Donner cover, one's the theatrical cover, and it comes with both discs. So the fact that they're releasing them in 2 different 4K UHD discs is kind of bullshit, but at the same time, I wanted to watch the Blu-ray, which I'd gotten for like $5 a few years back, and I hadn't thought, oh, is this going to look good compared to the UHD? And this is a 4K scan. They actually remastered this shit when they released it back in 2007, and honestly, it looks absolutely baller. So I'm like, I don't need to get the 4K, this looks great. It could probably use the 4K with the extra UHD supplements, but I'm like, this was fine. I'm happy with this. I might get Superman 2, like the theatrical cut on 4K, but for the most part, I'm pretty content. It's not a perfect film. I still gave it 3.5. It feels like there are some missing elements, like the Lex Luthor story just kind of just ends, like he's just in the middle of a line of dialogue and then he just disappears from the rest of the movie. I saw a deleted scene as to what actually happens to him, and honestly, I can see why they didn't put it in. It's like the Arctic police come by and arrest him, and I'm like, why would they? What? How the fuck did they get there? So it's kind of dumb, but I can understand why they didn't put that in, even though it's a bit confusing. But yeah, it was interesting. I think because the most pivotal scene was using test footage, that was what kind of cut me out of the movie a little bit, because he has different glasses, which I'm like, why would you use different glasses in the test footage? But it's the reveal that Superman is actually, like Clark is actually Superman scene, because Lois shoots him with a gun. It's wonderful. And then he's like, I can't believe you would try to shoot Clark. And she's like, yeah, with a blank. It's like, oh my god, she's a genius. So, yeah, it had some fun moments to it. It was a bit muddy, and the intercutting between Lois and Clark at the Fortress of Solitude with, you know, Zod taking over the world, but then knowing that in the theatrical cut, it doesn't happen simultaneously. Like, they have the whole Clark thing, and then he comes back, and it's like, oh, hey, look, now Zod's invading, you know, or like Zod's invaded, and then it cuts to, oh, these guys are like doing the stuff in the thing. So there's no intercut. It's just Zod stuff, then Clark and Lois, and then they go back, and it's like, oh no, I gotta get my powers back. It's weird, but I don't know which version I prefer. I kind of prefer the version. Some will prefer the Donner cut. It's got a weird ending though, that they just time travel. He just goes around. he removes the whole 2 days from ever happening. So you could literally watch it and then watch the theatrical cut, and it would be as if none of it had ever happened. It's interesting. And then on the Friday for Phil's birthday, we watched Houseu, which was actually... I got more of a story about this one. So it was his birthday. He had a private screening at a cinema. So I bought him 2 films. I actually got him the VHS of Death in Brunswick because I found it at the Savers or whatever. So that was great because we were watching this film in Brunswick. And I got him like my favorite Australian film, Love Serenade. So I figured that would be a good 2 films to get him. And yeah, he was like, when I got there, I was the first one of the guests to get there, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to do 20 questions to guess what the movie is?" Because he's like, he told me that was the criterion he had to scan because the place didn't have a Blu-ray player. So, but he said that he knows that I've watched the film because I've got it on my Letterboxd. And I forgot that I even had it on my Letterboxd. It was one of my earliest films on Letterboxd, I think. And so, yeah, I ended up doing 20 questions and guessed it within 6. I was able to go, was it post 2000? He said no. I said, was it post 1950s? He said yes. I said, was it the 80s? He said no. So I'm like, okay, well, not an 80s slasher, but because I knew it would be horror to some degree because him and I are big horror people. But then I'm like, yeah, well, it's Criterion. It wouldn't be a horror. It wouldn't be a slasher. And then I said, is it the 70s? He said yes. I said, is it Japanese? He said yes. And I'm like, it's Houseu. I didn't even say, is it Houseu? I'm like, it's Houseu. He's like, yeah, you got it. So I was like, yeah, and then I told him it was the first Criterion I got, and we had a blast watching it with him and his friends. So yeah, it was great. One of them had actually, 2 of them were from the band that because this is Phil and Katie, they were in, I did an interview with Caitlin Kohler. I filmed their band. There were videos on the channel. They 2 of their band members were there, and they like, one of them recognized me. He's like, have we met before? And it wasn't until later when I was asking like one of his friends, like, oh, so how'd you guys know Phil and whatever? And I mentioned that I'd met them at Cinemaniacs, and then I did an interview with Katie, and he's like, you're the guy who did the videos. That's where I know you. So he knew me from watching the interview, which was great. So yeah, that was wonderful. We had a blast of a night, but yeah. And then tonight, I figured I'd film this because it's Monday night. I watched Ghost Watch. House was 5 stars, by the way. Beautiful film. I feel like I should give it 4.5 because there are there's it gets to a point where it kind of dips and becomes quite slow again, but it becomes kind of like theatrical and artistic, and I'm like, I don't mind it, It gives you some time to cool off before ramping back up again. But yeah, tonight I watched Ghost Watch. I gave it 4.5 stars. Terrifying. I haven't been scared by a film since I watched Jew and the Grudge. Jew and the Curse. It just slowly creeped up on you. It was so well done. I won't dive into the plot or anything, but oh my god. If you haven't watched Ghost Watch, I really suggest it. Just don't look at the plot. Just I think it was on. It might still be on Shudder. I don't know. Go watch it. I watched the 101 Films Blu-ray. It was absolutely amazing to watch. So yeah, and I got the limited edition version. So it came with all these booklets and stuff. Really good stuff. So yeah, and what else did I watch this month? Okay, it's Monday. Hello, sorry. Got stuff here, so it's hard to film. So how do we finish off the month? I'm playing off by memory. So I watched, because we just done Ghost Watch, didn't we? Yeah, so Tuesday I had the day off, so I went to see Evil Dead Rise. It was alright. I didn't love it. I'm like, it's alright. I gave it 3 stars, but I gave it a like as well, because I like all the Evil Dead films, but it's just one of those... I feel like it could have been more than what it was. It's one of those films where it has ideas presented that I've seen done it better in different films. Both the idea of an Evil Dead film I've seen done better, not just because of Sam Raimi, but even the 2013 film. It's like it didn't seem as evil as it could have been. And on the notion of it being as dead, I'm like, I've seen Demons 2. It's the same film, but Demons 2 I think is kind of a bit better. It's less in terms of character, but better in terms of, oh, hey, it's an apartment building, there's a fuck ton of demons. It's just kind of fun. But then I spent the rest of my week editing for the Blu-ray collection video, which I'm only halfway through, my god. But I have finished filming it until I do box sets, so I don't even know what the hell I'm going to do for that. But I finished watching the Orville. I did like the third season. I really liked the last 2 episodes. For once, I feel like they fitted the over an hour and a half long runtime. I think that worked out pretty well. Yeah, for some of the other episodes, I'm like, oh my god, they were too long. But overall, pretty good show. I'd suggest it, given that it might not get a 4th season. It's on Disney Plus. I forgot to mention it because I didn't have my phone on me. I also watched the new John Mulaney comedy special, The Baby J. I thought it was alright. I'm not, I guess, not huge on his stand-up comedy. I don't know. I'm still trying to find exactly what my type of stand-up comedy is. But I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. But it's like, as a visual standpoint, not the most interesting thing of just a person standing there talking. But that is stand-up. But, you know, it was fun. I don't know, guys. Was a drug addict. What can I say? Which is exactly what you expect, I guess, if you don't know much about him. I guess, I don't know. Anyway, it's my first of his specials, so I'm starting off strong. On Saturday, I went to the Cinemaniacs because they had Grease 2. I gave that 2.5 stars, but I thought it was funny. Phil and Katie were there. We had a blast watching it because it was hilarious. But hilariously bad as well as kind of like, hey, this is interesting. I don't know. A lot of the people there were like, yeah, this is a masterpiece. I'm like, I don't know. I think some people are just in denial. But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. I still had fun watching it. I don't regret watching it. I bought a new film while I was there. I got to chat with Alexandra Hello Nicholas. So that was cool. Good to talk with her again because she didn't remember me from last time. So I'm like, good. I need to reintroduce myself. I need to be like, hey, I really liked your piece on Martin. So that was great. And then I followed Sunday with Babylon because after editing for like 8 hours, I'm like, I want to watch something. And I had 3 hours to kill, so I watched Babylon. And I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 stars. It's basically exactly what you expect in terms of the somewhat artistically pretentious love of Hollywood kind of film, but it's also an interesting depiction of the time period that you don't really see in film. Also, the fact that it pops up immediately with like an NC-17 rating, I'm like, oh right, because this is like an R-rated film in America. In Australia, it's MA because we get enough tits and ass normally, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of crazy shit in that movie, including an elephant that shits on a person. That was like my least favourite part, but that was in the first 5 minutes. The rest of the film was a blast. So, and it went by smoothly, despite it being 3 hours long. So, I'd recommend it, especially for people who like films about cinema, films about old Hollywood, but it's also one of the classic, like, oh, yeah, this place kind of sucks. So, yeah, it's all magical, but it's also, like, kind of terrifying, especially if you're on cocaine for the majority of it. So, yeah. But that's all that I watched in April. It's time for May, where I do other stuff. I don't know. Blu-ray collection coming soon. Also, happy birthday to the channel. Been doing this for 8 years now. That's why I did my Blu-ray collection 3 years ago, because it was like the 5-year anniversary of the channel. I'm like, I'm going to do a Blu-ray collection. And now I'm doing it for the 8-year anniversary. Not really, it's just because it's been 3 years and I've got so many to look at, so... Alright, well, thanks for watching, and tell me what you watched, if you care to, in anything that you found interesting that you watched this past month. And I'll see you next month with more stuff. I don't know, we'll see. I don't know, we'll see. Goodbye. Whoa.